Welcome to the Popcorn Wine Down with Tammy and Eddie. Grab your popcorn, get yourself a glass of wine, and come hang out with us as we discuss TV shows, movies, music, and pop culture.
Welcome to this episode of Popcorn Wine Down with Eddie
and Tammy.
This week we will be discussing Love, Victor, as well as the latest in entertainment and pop culture news, starting with Kanye West. I don't know where to begin with that.
Just like what do you think about it? Like what he's going through and how the public is responding to it as well, or their viewpoints on Kim Kardashian.
I don't know where to begin with that. It's just so much. His mental health, first of all, it's not to make a joke. Whether you canceled Kanye a long time ago, whether you still ride with Kanye, I think we can all admit, most of us, that what he's going through is sad, and to watch it happen so publicly. So just from the standpoint that there's something truly wrong with him. I don't blame Kim. I know the public, a lot of people, especially Black people, blame Kim and the Kardashians. It's not their fault. He's a grown man. He has been diagnosed with this illness for a long time, and even
before he met her and they got married, he was already diagnosed with bipolar. So I don't understand how people can blame her for what he's going through. That's for people that don't understand bipolar disorder and the episodes that people with this disorder can go through, and how the families have to deal with it.
Yeah, and so this isn't his only breakdown. This is his most recent breakdown. But when people with bipolar, they refuse to be medicated, it's not a matter of if they're going to go through an episode. It's a matter of when they go through their episodes. And, he's grown. She can't have him committed. She can't force him to seek help that he doesn't want to seek. So you just have to ride these storms. And, last week he said he shared some pretty private information about them and their children. And, recently he has apologized for that, for airing that publicly, and asked for forgiveness. So we'll see. But on the other side of that, you think he's turning the corner, but he's still talking about running for president and beating Joe Biden on write-in votes, which,
But you know what? People are all for that though. And I think that's a whole nother conversation. But I think he's still trying to run for president shows at the end of the day that he still needs help, and this is a sad situation that he is going through, and there's no acknowledgement on his part on what he's going through, and that happens when you're going through an episode and you don't want to acknowledge, there's lies, and you say things that hurt the people who love you the most, and that's just how it goes. But it is a very, very sad situation, and I don't think he's going to change his mind on this whole presidency thing, but good luck to that. Good luck. Yeah, good luck, and I do wish him well. I do wish him and his family well, and that's just from the standpoint of, I hope he gets it together. So speaking of men who don't quite have it together, the showrunner for MacGyver, the TV show MacGyver, which I know you kind of stopped watching, and Hawaii Five-0, which had been canceled this year, and also Magnum P.I., all on CBS, he was fired because it was learned or determined that, he was creating an abusive and toxic work environment, mainly on the show MacGyver. That's where most of the complaints came from. Especially with the lead of the show, Lucas Till, speaking out about how Peter Linklauf, is his name, was body shaming him and abusive to other cast members. And so it went all the way up to the head of HR at CBS itself. And they did what they did with Bull. They installed HR representatives to come and it was determined that it was indeed a very toxic work environment. So he lost his job.
And that's good. He should have lose his job. When you're creating a toxic environment in which to work, I just feel like a lot of times people kind of look at actors because they make millions like they're not people too, and they're not human beings, and they don't deserve to be treated with respect on, you know, at work. And just like I would refuse to have my boss to treat me with such disrespect, I think it was really good that they stood up and said something, and that HR actually came and did something about it when they realized that it was actually true. And this is just across the board, like every different channel, and even on movie sets where you have directors and certain producers that are just so harmful to the people who work under them. And before, nobody would ever do anything, and they wouldn't be talked about. You just kind of avoid working with that person again. I love the fact that now it's coming out, and basically a list is being made of who these people are, that is either you change how you've been or you lose your job. And I agree with that. I think that is how it should go.
Yeah, you're right. It is across the board, but just CBS seems to be a major offender, and it kind of makes me wonder if it carries over from them Les Moonves days, who had, you know, he lost his job, a couple years ago, when he was the head of CBS, how he just let a lot of stuff slide, and obviously he lost his job for the same reason. So, you know, sometimes it all trickles down from leadership, but you're right. It is across the board, not just in the entertainment industry, but in a lot of different industries as well. So we'll see what the new MacGyver looks like when it returns. And speaking of returns, there has been a lot of news about return dates and releases, and when some of the major studios are going to release their big picture films. And looks like it's not going to be for a while. The movie theater AMC announced that they're not going to reopen until maybe towards the end of August. And Tenet, the big tentpole movie for the summer from Christopher Nolan, has been pushed back indefinitely, as has Mulan. So I know that breaks your heart. It breaks mine too.
Oh my God.
Like we said,
I've been excited to see Mulan for so long, and I still got to wait longer to see that movie.
Mulan was supposed to come out like the week we went into lockdown, wasn't it?
No, the week after, like March 24th.
The week after?
Yeah, March 24th, I believe, is when Mulan was supposed to premiere. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have the specific date. But yeah, and really, really excited. Like, remember, like I was going to force everybody to go watch it with me.
Excited to see it. I was on that list. Really but I mean, think about everything that's been pushed back. Black Widow, the new Bond film, Tenet,
Wonder Woman.
Like those are the big tentpole films that I can think of. Fast and Furious, those are the big ones I can think of, like the summer blockbusters, not to mention all the smaller ones that are being released on VOD right now. Which is good for them. I'm really glad that, you know, they still have an outlet and a way to get those movies out. But Christopher Nolan is determined not to release Tenet on VOD or streaming platform before it's had its movie premiere, which I think is a good idea. But realistically, until we get this virus under control, especially here in this country, we may be looking at 2021 if we're just going to be real about it.
I actually am with Christopher Nolan. I think that this is a big blockbuster movie that's coming out, and I would be with him in agreeing to hold off until theaters open back up and it's able to have the major release that it deserves. Like, we're waiting for this. So I agree with him on not releasing it by, you know, video on demand or anything like that. Like, no, other smaller, you know, movies, yes. But for Tenet or Mulan, which people are also talking about how Disney should just release Mulan on their streaming service. And I don't agree with that. I think going towards how much money they can make if they release it in theater compared to on their streaming service, I say hold off until we're able to go back to the theater and let those be the big movies that come out, and let us know that it's time to go back and I can get my life back on watching movies every week.
I agree with that. And I think, like I said, honestly, it's just my opinion. I think it's going to be 2021 is a reasonable date. But also, you have to think there really haven't been any movies made or completed this year. So if they rush to release all this now, then 2021 is going to be a desert for movies and releases. So we will see. Also, being released this week is music. Taylor Swift dropped some new music, which I liked. I know you didn't like Folklore, but I did like it. I just wanted to throw that in there. But, and as far as returns go, General Hospital, one of my favorite shows. I don't know if it counts as a show or not. It's a soap opera. I love it. It's going to start back up on August 3rd with new episodes. Yay, General Hospital. And for renewals, The Boys from Amazon was renewed for season 3 before season 2 has even been released. And season 2 is going to be released in September on the 24th. And Sweet Magnolias on Netflix was also renewed for season 2. Outer Banks was renewed for season 2. That's a whole nother discussion. Perry Mason, have you seen that show?
I have not.
On HBO Plus. It's really good. And it's been renewed for season 2. It stars Matthew Rhys and it's produced by Robert Downey Jr. And the show that I keep waiting for is for Woo Assassins. I need Netflix to give me a yes or no, either way on Woo Assassins. But I do need another season of Woo Assassins.
Good luck.
So, huh?
I said good luck on that one.
Well, Netflix has been notorious with taking a while to announce, some of their renewals. So I'm still holding out hope for Woo Assassins. I haven't gotten a no, but I haven't gotten a yes. Unlike Baker and the Beauty, which did receive a definite no from ABC. And I never watched the show, so I can't say whether the cancellation was valid or not, but I know that it upset a lot of the cast. One of the stars of the show called it a tone-deaf cancellation, especially in this time. And when asked what they meant by that, they said because it leaves there are very few shows, if any, with Latino leads. And I researched and they were correct. There's only 2 that I found so far. And that's the show we're going to be talking about a little bit later on, Love Victor on Hulu. And, they're very good shows in my opinion, but there aren't like mainstream, most popular shows out there. So you do have a lack of Latino representation, especially on TV.
Yeah, but I did watch Baker and the Beauty, and while I can understand where they are coming from and saying it's tone deaf because it's canceled and it's one of the only shows on primetime with a primarily a Latin cast, I will say I can understand why ABC canceled the show. Like, I watched it from beginning to end, and there were a lot of things that I liked about the show, but then I can also understand why it was not a ratings champion when it came on. So money-wise and just making smart decisions on what would be worth it, I see why ABC did cancel the show. And so technically, is it really tone deaf just because it's a Latin cast? If your show isn't good enough to get a second season? So that's just my opinion on it. I understand what they're trying to say, but at the same time, if your show isn't good, it's not good, no matter who's in the cast.
Hey, so I have a question. Like, sometimes I think people cancel shows a little too quickly. So is it one of those shows that they could have retooled and made better during the second season, which could have possibly earned it more acclaim or more ratings? Or
yes, if they actually wanted to make the changes, but at the ending, the 2 main characters, which I think one of the weakest points was actually the romance between the Baker and the Beauty. I think
isn't that the whole premise of the show?
Yeah, that was the whole premise of the show. But I think, like, you know how sometimes a show has, you know, a main theme that they kind of revolve the show around, and then as you start to see people get more interested in the secondary themes, they start to shift the direction of the show. And I think that's one thing that Baker and the Beauty did not do, is they didn't shift as they saw the dynamics change. I think one of the strongest points of the show was the family dynamics. And I don't feel like that was showcased enough compared to this romance that I just feel didn't work as well. I think they could have retooled it in the second season to make the relationship work along with the family dynamics. I like how, you know, they weren't fully accepting of her when she first, you know, started dating their son and everything like that. Like, definitely liked that. But it didn't look like that was the direction that the show was going to go in if they did get a second season. They were just going to go full force ahead with this relationship, especially since they got engaged in the season finale after dating for like maybe 2 months. Like, no, you know, you want hope, but at the same time, I can understand why it's not coming back again for another season.
Well, and you do have actors out there who represent the Latino community and other minority communities who you may not realize. And one of those actors was James Roday. He was the star of Psych. And most people thought he was fully Caucasian, but he's actually Hispanic. And so he changed
on that
his
new
name
show, A Million Little Things.
A Million Little Things.
On
and
ABC.
He didn't, some people say he changed his name. He just said he went back to his original name. So he's now adding James Roday Rodriguez. And, you know, when he first started in Hollywood, he was told to drop the name so he can get roles because he didn't look Hispanic enough. When he would go out for Hispanic roles or Latino leads, they told him he was too white, and if he kept his last name Rodriguez, he would not get any job. So that's a horrible choice, I think, to have to make. And Olivia Munn has talked about the same thing. She's half Asian. So is Chloe Bennett on Agents Marvel. Marvel Shields Agents. Yeah, I can't pronounce the show today, but yeah.
What about, oh my gosh, what is her name? She's on Sweet Magnolia now.
Joanna Garcia Swisher.
Joanna Garcia, she was the daughter for Reba on the show Reba, and how she said she had to, she did not change her name, but she couldn't get cast as a Latina. She couldn't get cast in those roles because they said because she was blonde, and the stereotype is that they're all dark haired, that she ended up only being able to go for white roles. Now, granted, she didn't have to change her name, but she did only have to go for white roles because those were the only roles that she could get, rather than getting roles that actually, you know, represented her heritage and her culture. So that's like kind of a flip side on that.
Same thing for Alexis Bledel, who played Rory on the Gilmore Girls. A lot of people don't know that she's part Argentinian. And they didn't realize that, you know, she was fluent in Spanish because she was brunette with blue eyes and all of that.
Yep.
So it's just going to be interesting, this new era of social reckoning that we're coming to terms with, and realizing a lot of the things that have been overlooked, especially as far as minorities are concerned in society. So, like I said, one of the shows that does have great Latino representation is the show Love, Victor on Hulu. And are you ready to dive into that?
I am so ready to dive into, because I want to see what you think about the show and if it kind of matches up with, you know, what I got from the show as well. So definitely excited to see what our viewpoints are on this new show on Hulu.
So today we are going to break down Love, Victor, which is a spin-off of the movie Love, Simon. And Love, Victor kind of picks off where Love, Simon left off, except it has a whole new cast and character. The title character, Victor Salazar, is played by Michael Cimino. and he is a young Latino boy who just moved to Atlanta from Texas, and he actually ends up going to to Simon's high school, and he finds out what a legend Simon was and how Simon came out, and he kind of uses that as a springboard to start a friendship with Simon, who kind of guides him on his journey as far as making new friends in this place and some of the drama going on within his whole family. So tell me, what did you think about the show and why did you start watching it?
I loved the show, love Victor. And I started watching it because I was a huge fan of the movie Love, Simon. I think that it was an amazing concept that really, really spoke to teenagers and what they needed to see, like certain representations that they needed. And so when I heard that they were gonna have the Love, Victor show, I was just like, okay, so definitely I'm already watching it. Like I binge watched it over 2 days, all the episodes back to back to back. And I liked what it was, and I see definite potential for more. What about you?
Yeah. I agree. I was one of those surprise latecomers to the Love, Simon movie, and I loved it. I thought it was really innovative. It's something that was needed for this time. And so I'd been hearing that they were going to do a sequel, and I thought that the sequel would be a movie. So I was really pleasantly surprised when I found out that A, it would be a TV show, and B, that it would have a minority cast, which I think is really important. Not just to tell LGBTQ stories, but to tell them with minority leads. And so I think the show did a really good job of that. So I was pleasantly surprised on both fronts, both with the movie and with the show as well. So what were some of your favorite scenes or episodes from the show? What did you like about it?
So I guess I'm about to show like my romantic side, because I think that like one of my favorite scenes was actually in the first episode. It's when they introduced one of Victor's love interests. It is the Benji slow-mo introduction scene. And like he comes in and Victor just stops listening to Felix, who's having a conversation with him at the time, and he's staring at Benji, and like Benji's like slow-mo walking in. He goes and he drinks some water. He puts his hands through his hair real slow, and then he gets to Felix and Victor, and then we get back to the regular speed. And I love that introduction. It's so cliche. Such a cliche introduction, but I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. So that's like one of my favorite scenes from the show.
Yeah, that's a good one. I liked the introduction, and it kind of gives you an idea of, we know already what Victor doesn't know, that he probably is gay.
Totally.
But at one point, though, you almost think that he might be bi, but no, he's gay.
Never. It's kind of, okay, sorry, not to interrupt you, but like when you look at how he's introduced to Mia and his response to Mia, and then his absolute like response to Benji, I feel like in the very beginning, the first episode really showed me that he wasn't bi. Like he does go through questioning whether he's bi or gay, but I was just like, you're not bi. Like the fact that you had him slow-mo walking towards you rather than regular speed, like when you met Mia, it kind of confirmed it for me. But I mean, you know, he still had to go through his self-discovery.
He did, and as part of his journey of self-discovery, I think one of my favorite scenes is when he visits Simon in New York, which I think is episode 10, and he and Simon's boyfriend go play basketball, and you said it was naive on him, but I think he had this realization is that, hey, I can still be me and not give up the things that I like. And I think, you know, when you were talking about his naivety, I think, in a way he was naive, but coming from where he came from in Texas, especially if it's the part where I think he came from, which just from looking at, looks like he came from like the Panhandle, which is really Texas is conservative, but that's really the Bible Belt conservative part of Texas. I could understand some of that. Plus, you have to think about how many gay people did he know outside of stereotypes before he moved to Atlanta. So, that's
really true. But I will say, like, to add on to that, on one of my favorite episodes was Boys Trip, where he does go to New York. Now, granted, I do want to say that I felt that Victor gave a little bit of a stalker vibe on how he reached out to Simon in the beginning. Like, that was just real random in a way on reaching out to him. But I love the friendship that they form over the course of this show. So it turns out better, but that was just a little weird. And also on the fact of saying that we have to remember that he jumped on a bus and rode a bus from Atlanta to New York. And all he did was just send Simon a message on his way there. Didn't even like get permission ahead of time. So that was really interesting. Like, I don't think I could have ever like just jump on a bus and driven to New York just to meet someone I'd never met who could have turned out to be anybody.
Kids these days, the social media, that's the way and texting, that's the way they do all their communication. So, it probably would have been scarier if he would have actually picked up the phone, like us old folks do.
And like randomly just getting on a bus and be like, I'm gonna go to New York this weekend and just.
Yeah, but then you have to put it in the context that he really needed to clear his head, and with everything going on in his home life and with his relationship stats, he just really wanted to get out of town as soon as possible. So I kind of get that, it's just like, hey, let me just do this and let you know I'm coming before you tell me no.
Don't give you an option of saying no, because kind of like you kind of have the fact that I'm showing up no matter what because I'm already on my way. But besides that, I think that the Boys Trip episode 8, was really great, like you said, on his realization of who he could be and that he could be himself and also be gay. And he didn't have to give up one for the other. So I do agree with you on that. But I even loved him meeting different representations within the LGBTQ community and seeing that it's not like, one-faceted? It's like, it's not one fits all. Like, we're all different. And then when Simon explains it later on, the reason why he had these conversations with his roommates about Victor, and he like really goes into details, and you start to see like, because everybody has their own experience, their own coming out experience, but their own realization. And it was really, really great to see that, based on like how the episode first started, I think it ended on a really, really great note. And that was one of the most powerful episodes that the show had, was episode 8, when he goes to New York to meet Simon.
That was one of my favorite ones too. I also liked episode 9 in particular, where we start to find out a little bit more about Felix, but who's his best friend. But I really, really liked when he came back from New York, and it kind of picks up, and he calls Felix early in the morning, and Felix is the first person who, besides Simon, who he actually admits to that he's gay, and Felix's reaction.
That was a really good scene.
Where he goes, I don't know what to say to that. And he's like, that's probably the best thing that you could say, and Felix just let him know, it doesn't change how I feel about you. You're still my best friend. It was just like, it was just that moment of comfort. So I really enjoyed that.
And I thought it was a great, a real great showcase on teenage boy friendship. Because we think of like the stereotypical of when a teenage boy comes out and says, like, comes out as gay, that he's gonna lose all his friends. And
especially all his guy friends.
Yeah, he's going to lose all his guy friends. And that's happened a lot in TV shows where you have to go through this whole thing. And sometimes the friends come back, but I feel sometimes that when the friends end up accepting them later on, it's only because it looks bad on the character's part if they don't accept. But a lot of times, at least from what I've seen on teenagers that I know, that sometimes like it really is okay. And I love the fact that they showed like he didn't know what to say, but at the same time, like, we're still gonna be friends. Like did you think we weren't gonna be friends? Like, you know, so that was a really, really great moment. One of the reasons why I really loved him and Felix's friendship from the very beginning. Compared to some other shows.
And I think it showed the evolution of his relationship with Felix, who's played by Anthony Turple. When we first are introduced to Felix in the very first episode, he comes across as this typical goofy, like, I didn't think I would like Felix. I thought he was going to be the stereotypical annoying neighbor who tagged along. And I think Victor felt that way too. And then you really start to see, like, especially in, I believe it's the second episode where they go to Mia's party and Felix still is the tag along and Victor still treating him like a tag along to fit in with the basketball team until he gets drunk and Victor ends up taking care of him and he realizes, hey, okay, you know, like, this might be my friend. I don't know yet, but just as you watch the episodes, you see that there really is a lot more to Felix. You see a little bit more about his home life and why he is the way he is, why he's never at home, why he's always with always with Victor, why he's always at Victor's house, and how he just kind of made himself a part of the family, but he eventually fits in just like he is one of the Salazar kids. It's like by the end, you get the feeling that he is the fourth kid they never had. Like, he's just part of the family.
He said that he was the third kid because he forgot about Adrian.
Yeah. And I also think you see that evolution in how he helps Pilar when Victor's out of town and he realizes just how much she misses her friends, you know? But was it me, or was there a moment, like a real moment between Felix and Pilar?
Oh, no. It was not just you. I really saw that as well.
That wasn't just like brother and sister?
No, that's the thing. Like, I didn't get the vibe from them. I got the vibe like it was going to start off on not necessarily a love-hate kind of relationship, but I can see like maybe 2 seasons from now on Felix switching and realizing that he actually like likes Pilar. Like, they had a connection. Like, so you're not the only one. Okay. They definitely had a connection in that one scene where they're talking, right? And yeah, at the ice cream or the coffee shop or whatever. Yeah. And now the character who you see, and that's the one thing I like, how the show kind of lets you know that people are not exactly who you think they are, especially the kids. Like Lake, the best friend of Mia, Lake is played by B. Wood. Her character comes across as a stereotypical shallow, rich party girl. And you see that eventually her home life and the pressures that her mom puts on her. Her mom's a famous newscaster in Atlanta, and her mom puts all these pressures on her, and she doesn't really think of her as smart. And she tells her, it's basically her mom comes across as you always have to be pretty or dressed up because you don't have much else going for you. And you just kind of see that, and it makes you feel bad for her, but I still didn't quite ever come to love the character or love her relationship with Felix. Even in the end, I still think that Felix is too good for her. Aw, I kind of disagree, and I actually like Lake's character. And once again, throwing out my romantic side on the cliche of it, sometimes TV shows need that. We're used to that, and sometimes the cliches work and sometimes they don't. And we'll talk about like one cliche that I just feel needs to be buried and never come out again. But I like the evolution of Lake in the show. I think that she's very hello?
I'm here.
She's very stereotypical. She's very shallow. She falls for Andrew, who's like the popular jerk, and Mia's just like, I don't understand why you like him. He's such a jerk. And she's like, I know, right? With a big smile on her face. And I'm just like, I thought I wasn't gonna like her with that one scene. So I'm just like, oh gosh, please don't be that girl. And then you slowly see the change. And I think the part that really made me like her was when she starts to get jealous of Felix with that girl. And she refuses to take Felix to the dance, and all of that goes down. And then she does the big cliche move where she welcomes him on stage to accept the trophy with her. And I was just like, that's so cute. Like, she finally realizes that she likes him and that he's perfect for her because he actually listens to her, and he's smart, and he's not an idiot that just has a cute face. And he's not ugly either, but you know.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's it. It's just one too many cliches for me. Like I said, I didn't totally dislike her character, but I just wasn't, the character. And Mia, she also, her mom, I really hope if they're renewed for season 2, that she works out her mommy issues sooner rather than later.
Oh my God, yes. And her daddy issues, because she got both.
Yeah. And, so it's just like, but I did like the family dynamic, but it became a little too much. I really,
and her dad and the girlfriend.
I understood what was going on. I understood why she felt the way she felt, but just some of her reactions to it, she was okay. She knew her mom wasn't coming back, and she was okay with her dad dating these dumb bimbos and, whatever. But as soon as her dad gets serious about someone who's worth something, it's like she just has this whole over-the-top reaction. And I get it for the first few episodes, but it just became a little too much as they kept carrying it over and over throughout. So
he was seriously disrespectful, like on a whole nother level. And I think that's kind of why slowly Mia started to go down on my list of favorite characters, is because there was no evolution on that until the very, very end. Like, there was no evolution. And if they thought that was like a whole big scene, my whole thing was like, seriously?
Yeah, like, and at that point, it doesn't.
The whole time.
Because of what happened, though, that's the thing. I can't even say it was an evolution. I just say it was because Veronica, who's played by Sophia Bush, I can just say that it was because her character was there. It wasn't like she went seeking her out.
If it had been anybody else, they would have gotten that same hug and crying moment as well. It was not. It wasn't. You were right. It wasn't specifically because of Veronica. It was mainly because she was just in the right place at the right time when Mia needed somebody to comfort her. And that's the reason why I feel like she was one of those characters that had like less evolution and growth as a character.
But one of my favorite characters, I grew to like him, was Andrew. He plays the spoiled jock, actually, and he is Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son. Mason Gooding plays this Andrew, and he does start off as the stereotypical jock and jerk, and I didn't like him at first, but eventually I grew to like him, and it was because of several things. It showed that his growth was self-actualized. Like, it didn't take someone just beating him over the head or some tragic thing for him to be just a good person, to realize that, hey, maybe me being a jerk is not where it's at. Like when he, when Felix went off on him for a moment, and so he turns around and he actually does something nice, which surprises Felix because of the conversation they had, which is a little juvenile, but again, it's a high school show, or it's a teen show. And then also, I think it was when he could have outed Victor and he didn't. In a lot of cases, especially because he and Victor are somewhat competing for the same girl. So I think, and when Victor asked him about it, he was like, yo, that's a low even for me, So he knows he's a jerk, but he was like, there's some lines he just wouldn't cross. And also, when Mia tried to throw herself at him at the end, where he was like, no, You know, and even though you get the feeling, you know, he really likes or he really cares for, a lot of people would have just taken her up on her offer just to let that be their opening and let that be the foundation of their friendship, or of their relationship. So I really did like his growth or the evolution of his character.
To each their own. He's my least favorite character. Don't like him. I hated, like, and this is where it's kind of like the cliche of the popular jerk. Just didn't sit well with me. I like, oh my gosh, like he's just like, he goes overboard on being an asshole, and I didn't necessarily like, there were some moments where he definitely like showed some type of growth and showed that underneath he's a good person. I think that he's kind of used to getting what he wants, and when he doesn't get it, he's even more of a jerk. But his jerk moments are just the worst, and I just could not ignore it enough. There wasn't enough good moments and there wasn't enough growth for me to ignore like all of the jerk moments that he had. Like from the very beginning, when you are introduced to him and he makes the GoFundMe for Victor. Like one of my favorite scenes for Victor is when he stands up to Andrew from the beginning. Like typically you would have it where the main character would kind of back down and, you know, be humiliated, but he didn't do that. Like he stood up and said, take it down and give everybody back their money, and he laughed it off. And then why did he do it? Because his feelings were hurt. That's why he did it, because his feelings were hurt. So he did have good qualities, but it just wasn't enough for me to ignore all the negative that he had going for him. So unfortunately, he was my work. Like I hated him. I did not like his character at all. Like nah. I'm good if he's not back. Like I did not like him.
Okay. So overall, did you like the story? Like, did you like how the way it ended, I guess?
I hate the cliffhanger. Oh my gosh. Like, because I'm just like, what if you don't, like, oh my God, I need to find out what happened. Like, how did his parents react, and his sister, and like, how are they going to go forward from this, especially with his parents separating? But I think that I liked his evolution. I liked his self-discovery.
So he wasn't as naive.
I was literally about to say, like, he did have some naive moments. He did have some naive moments that I think it's lazy writing in parts, on trying to, maybe it was on the transition from Disney to Hulu, and some character traits just kind of transferred over. I do think that he was a little naive in some moments, but overall, his evolution, becoming who he is and accepting who he was, I loved it. And he had some bold moments as well. Like the one thing that I loved is while he was naive, Victor also had a confidence about him that I think you don't typically see in teenagers that are like him, like, you know, the good guy, the good everyday guy. Sometimes like they lose the confidence. It's like they can't be confident and a good person. Like it's one or the other. So I love the fact that he was confident.
Well, I noticed that in the episode when they threw him in the birthday party and he stood up to his grandfather when he saw Benji and his boyfriend Derek kissing. And he was like, look, they're my friends, and, you know, this is our house. You can't come here and do that. So it'll be interesting to see how Grandpa reacts when he finds out his grandson is gay, though.
Oh my God, yes.
And his parents' reaction too. The one thing that I really did not like, speaking of taking cliches too far, was I hated the way Mia found out. I thought that was lazy writing. You could still have her be angry because he did, in a sense, lie to her. Yes, even though he was lying to himself, you know, as a teenager, you wouldn't understand that. And you got the feeling she really did like him.
Yes.
Okay. So she could have still been angry with him
actually having a conversation and telling her. So I think the way she found out was a cop-out, with her walking in on him and Benji kissing. So I really thought, I was really hopeful that they would actually make them have the conversation. And I don't know if it's something that they didn't want to address or felt like it would have been too difficult to address because it was with Disney, or why they took that way out. But I was hopeful that for once that would not happen, but it did. So it will be interesting to see.
It is a cop out. I would agree with you on that. But like thinking about it more, like I feel that, isn't that a teenager though? On not wanting to address uncomfortable situations, because there was so many times that Victor could have told her before her family drama got in the way, and he didn't. He kept postponing, and I think that played a role into, of course, the cliche of everybody finds out by watching the person kiss, the other person. Definitely, but I think it's just typical teenagers on avoiding like real like conversations like that. Not especially Victor, not knowing how to go there with the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, and for the first few episodes, I get it, but it's like they kept, and that's what I'm saying. I get him not wanting to have a conversation because it's not an easy conversation to have with anyone. So the first few times something kept getting in his way, I understand that. I even understand why he didn't tell her the night of. When he originally wanted to tell her, when she found out about her dad and his girlfriend or his fiance. So I understand that. I understand him wanting to give her one night at the dance. So I was like, okay, well, maybe they will actually give it the one night at the dance. But I guess that whole situation with her is what leads to him not actually walking away from his parents. I guess they had to sacrifice one or the other. So they chose to have him actually, come out and tell the truth, or tell his parents. So your final thoughts, what did you think? How would you rate the season overall? And do you think it deserves a season 2?
Okay, so I definitely think it deserves a season 2. I am going to give it 3.5 popcorns because I think it was good. I think it was good for a first season. And there's so many different ways that they can go, especially seeing as how now it is officially a Hulu series. I'm excited to see where they're going to go from here with it. So yes, 3.5 popcorns. They did a great job on the first season on the evolution and the self-discovery of Victor. And I can't wait to see what they do in season 2. What do you rate it as?
I agree. I'll give it 3.5 popcorns with room for improvement. I think it definitely deserves a season 2. As we're talking, there's not enough minority representation, period, in television, but especially for Latino. If we think African American representation is lacking, then the same can be said for Latinos, Asians, and other minority groups, and especially teenagers dealing with these issues and their self-discovery and their self-journey. So, and I also think with it being on Hulu, that gives it so much more room to grow as a show rather than it's staying with Disney. And I have to remember, as this was written, the whole first season was written and filmed for Disney Plus. So I think hopefully they will get another season and we can see how it grows as a show and the stories that they tell. Okay.
Very excited.
So, me too. So please, Hulu, give Love Victor a season 2. If you haven't watched it already, check it out. It is a great show. You will not be sad. And that just about does it for this week on the Popcorn Wind Down. Thank you for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time when we will be talking about The Old Guard, currently streaming on Netflix with Charlize Theron. So until next time, from the Popcorn Wind Down, I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy. Bye.
Bye.